Part two in the thing I just started a short time ago. It is still the 20th of November 2025, 6:49 on the West Coast PM. Weaver, John C. Roseman, California. Because I don't think I identified myself in the previous video. It's Diary of the Griever named John Weaver, which is me. Alright. So, war crimes. I've never been in the military, but I've hung around military, but it doesn't make me an absolute expert on the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It is something that is drilled into every boot, every sailor, every soldier that goes into the military of what's expected of them and what's allowed and what's not allowed, including when we're talking about orders that are justifiable and legal versus illegal orders. And throughout human history, we've had orders given by military commanders who have done such atrocities, and yet not getting prosecuted or convicted for them. I don't know how long the practice of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, probably a lot longer than I've been born. I'll say that point. And our United States soldiers and sailors have to conform and comply to the strongest and strictest of rules and regulations that they have to do. Well, form their job to be behaving outside the military influence, but still being employed by Uncle Sam and under constant orders and observations of higher ups. If we had a situation where it was illegal for us to do actions, but we did them anyway, I know the lawyers will say I was only following orders. But would they also have been consulting legal experts within all four, all five, all six? How many branches we got? 6. And how many branches of justice systems we have? The Marines and the Navy and the Coasties, I suppose, are under JAG. Everybody else is going to be under something for the Army at this point. And the Air Force following under it. And because of this, they're all covered under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It doesn't matter which branch of service, it's still the same thing. Now, the former military and civilian workers who used to work in the intelligence agencies, who've sworn an oath to the Constitution, again, to become folks to work in Congress, both in Senate and House, had expressed major concerns concerning about our current, if I have to say the damn thing in the first place, President of the United States, orange gas bag, of the orders that he'll be issuing or have already issued that cause death and destruction without legal justification. Now, when he got into office, he had departments stripped through Elon Musk and his team of incompetence to strip out the government every which way, not just finances, but personnel, and also structure and how to function. All the frameworks we depended upon. Trump got rid of a lot of expertise who didn't agree with Trump one damn bit. They had expertise in over things military that Trump didn't like. He wanted yes men. He wanted things to get done. That's why we have a talk show host in charge of the Pentagon, who he now calls it the War Department instead of Department of Defense. The gas bag's been threatening war in the world, just to prove he's a tougher guy than every other damn tyrant out there. He's not, but he's trying to pretend he's being. He's a talk show personality. And unfortunately, people drank the Kool-Aid and got him in office. Electoral math added up for his ass. Popular vote didn't. But even now, his supporters are finding out how insane this guy is, not to mention the rest of the staff, who is tearing apart everything we hold dear in the Constitution and every other precedent, every legal basis, every tradition that we hold sacred. For as long as the colonies had first been started, even through the Magna Carta, something that started the basis of human rights in tiny old England. And that was carried forward. A part of our legal basis is off the Magna Carta. I may be lousy at dates and other kind of figures, or maybe sometimes in specifics. And I may have to research it. You know, shit happens. You get older, you forget stuff, you have to write stuff down. Or go through other sources to get it. But when those sources get screwed over by other people who are re-envisioning, reimagining what history was like, it's very confusing to us old farts anyway. Especially the ones who remembered history a lot different than what the fiction is being handed out. I know, I'm a fiction writer myself. And this is not acceptable in any other American tradition at this point over here. What's even worse is when you have federal wolfhounds going after people for whatever damn reason to harangue them, including Native Americans in different towns and different places, trying to obscure and abscond facilities to house other people, including their own, claiming that they're not full Americans, they're not patriotic enough, they're not subjugated under Trump's whims. They chose not to be. It's not being chosen. They're not. Trump wants everything under his thumb. He wants everything under his damn thumb. And the bitch of it is, he can't have it. His ego is that bad. His mental status is that screwed up. He can't do it. He can't have it. But he's willing to screw over people left and right. He's willing to do whatever it is necessary to make sure we're not going to get anything. He gets it all. Because he says so. He's Donald Trump. His ego is that bad. And he hires people who follows that because they feel like they can be empowered in that way too. And it goes on and on and on and on. Replicator. That's why I call them Trumplicants all the damn time. They're replicating themselves. It's bad enough because when you have certain military personnel, high-ranking military personnel, who have been in the department a lot longer than the schmuck has, who know what traditions and values and rules, regulations, guidelines, everything needed to run their own departments, to run their own divisions, to run their own commands. Having your senior, who is a respected leader, stripped, kicked out, retired, court-martialed, or forced people to go into resignations, just so political yes men can go into the military branch and do major disruptions. How do these other regimes manage to keep their military? How much money did they have to keep paying them? Out of which pockets? And was it successful enough? Some actually have legacy. Some countries actually have a strong legacy of fear of intimidation. There's many people, but then again, you have the military with the guns and the police forces with the authority to bust in at any time and cause fear and panic. To arrest, bust, harass, kill, just to keep the fear and tyranny going. This is what the independents and the corporates been trying to talk about. Actually, more of the independents been yelling and screaming their heads off. But did anybody listen? Nope. because we've got him in office right now. So, as I keep asking the question, what are we going to be doing? We are forced to be put into a political stance. We are forced to be put into a physical stance. We are forced to use force, because that justifies Trump and the Trumplicans' existence. So they can put more of the hammer and squeeze down. They'd seen how other revolutions were like. If they had been smart enough, they would have figured the shit out. It won't work. But then other democracies collapse because the more fear, more intimidation, the less pushback. We're pushing back. We're even trying to get the legal to push back. Only if you are going to follow the law. But it depends which particular law you're going to be following. Is it the Constitution and already to set precedents and laws that we've had for centuries? Or is there going to be new crap to be followed, and they'll figure that's more legal than the old stuff? And if that's the case, are we going to be peaceful, or are we going to be picking up what they want the most? Because now we see it in front of our face. It's been tossed by them. And they're goading. And they're constantly pushing. They want the violence. They want the confrontation. They want people. Oh, here's Lawrence O'Donnell.
Execution of members of Congress. The first president of the United States to call for members of Congress to be put to death. The American news media has been so overwhelmed by Donald Trump since his emergence on the political stage that the New York Times, which continues to do great work in covering Donald Trump and the world, has lost its perspective on the enormity of what Donald Trump decided to say today about members of Congress, saying something that he says is, quote, punishable by death. Had any other president of the United States ever said anything like it, the New York Times would have a 6-inch headline about it and a front page devoted entirely to that madness and the reaction to that madness. And tonight it's not even close to the lead story in the New York Times. It is impossible to make too much of this story. And the only way to try to reduce the historic and moral and legal importance of what Donald Trump said is to internalize the notion that Donald Trump's words do not matter. And the American news media has done that. And they have done it for exactly one president. The old rules will come roaring back as soon as Donald Trump isn't president anymore. The next Democratic president better be prepared for the New York Times and the rest of the news media to scream attention to any phrasing on any subject by a Democratic president that they think is imperfect. A week ago, Donald Trump had one member of Congress in the basement of the White House, turning the Situation Room into a police interrogation room with the top cop in the country, Donald Trump's Attorney General, and others in the room trying to get one member of Congress to confess that she was wrong to sign that discharge petition in the House of Representatives, signed mostly by Democrats, to force the release of the Epstein files. That's what Donald Trump was trying to do 1 week ago. Not punish members of Congress by death, but just change one mind, one Republican mind. And he failed. And his Attorney General failed. And Congresswoman Lauren Boebert did the honorable thing and stared back at the most powerful law enforcement official in the country and the president she has been so loyal to and said no. If she had said yes, if she had gone back to the House of Representatives and taken her signature off that discharge petition, then that bill never would have come to a vote. That's all Donald Trump had to do. That's how close he came. He just had to convince one Republican to take her name off that discharge petition, and Donald Trump a week ago wasn't powerful enough to do that. He wasn't powerful enough to force one Republican to bend to his will. And that's when we saw the first real crack in the Trump wall in the Congress. The Trump wall that forbids Republicans from ever voting with Democrats on anything. Never mind something that's personally important to Donald Trump, which is to continue to hide the details of his friendship with the child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, who said he was Donald Trump's closest friend for 10 years. There has been no more important vote in Donald Trump's presidency than the vote that was about him and his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. And all Donald Trump had to do to prevent that vote was to convince one Republican woman to take her name off that list, take her signature off that list, and Donald Trump couldn't do that. That was inconceivable just days before. It seemed impossible to imagine that Donald Trump, when he really needed a Republican member of the House to do what he wanted, that he wouldn't be able to convince that Republican. It's impossible to see the weakness of a dictatorship until defiance exposes that weakness. The collapse of the Trump dictatorship in the Congress, the collapse of the Trump wall in the House of Representatives, and the Trump wall down the center aisle of the United States Senate, the Trump wall that prevented Republicans from ever voting with Democrats, the collapse of that wall happened as dramatically and quickly as the collapse of the Berlin Wall in 1989 after 29 years of people being shot in the back trying to climb over that wall to escape East Berlin, murdered by a Soviet-controlled dictatorship. Suddenly, it was all over. And a week before, no one saw it coming.
Good evening, live from the Berlin Wall on the most historic night in this wall's history. What you see behind me is a celebration of this new policy announced today by the East German government that now, for the first time since the wall was erected in 1961, people will be able to move through freely. This crowd has gathered here tonight spontaneously. From the East German side, they have been training water cannon, as you can see on some of the celebrants, but it doesn't seem to make much difference.
NBC News' Tom Brokaw was the only American news reporter there on November 9th, 1989. The CIA didn't predict that. The people imprisoned in East Germany rose up in massive numbers and began pouring through the checkpoints where they used to be murdered for taking too many steps toward that wall. And by the time Tom Brokaw was there, 20,000 people had rushed through that checkpoint. And as people climbed to the top of the Berlin Wall that night, and the pathetic water cannons from the dictatorship side of the wall sprayed on them, those protesters mocked the wall. They mocked the deadly fearsomeness of that wall. They instantly turned that wall of death into a joke. And then East and West Germans went to work with their own hands and tore it down. No government tore down that wall. No politician tore down that wall. The people tore down that wall. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's victims, almost all of whom are now survivors, tore down the Trump wall in the House and the Senate. And we watched them do it. And a week before the unanimous vote against Donald Trump, no one saw it coming. Just like no one saw the collapse of the Berlin Wall coming a week before it fell. The collapse of the Berlin Wall was the collapse of the Soviet Union itself. A year later, the Soviet Union was tottering. And 2 years after the collapse of the Berlin Wall, the Soviet Union was gone. Is that where we are tonight? We know Donald Trump will be gone in 3 years. But will the people tear down Trumpism before that? A year after the unanimous vote in the House of Representatives and the Senate against Donald Trump, voters will go to the polls in this country to decide how many Trump supporters they want in the House and how many in the Senate and how many opponents of Donald Trump they want in the House and in the Senate. No one knew in that week When the Berlin Wall collapsed, the Soviet Union was then going to collapse. And that's where we are tonight. We don't know what will happen next year. But now we know what's possible. We've seen the collapse of the Trump wall in Congress, and we know that Donald Trump is weaker than he has ever been as president. And it may be that we are a year away from Donald Trump coming under the full control of a Democratic House of Representatives and a Democratic United States Senate, and that would bring Trumpism to an end. The Congress can fully control Donald Trump's madness, but the Republican Congress so far refuses to do that. A Democratic Congress will control Donald Trump. A Democratic Congress will investigate Donald Trump and everyone working for him, and they all know it. And so a week after trying and failing to convince one Republican member of Congress to change her mind, Donald Trump turns to threatening death for 6 Democratic members of Congress because they said this.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly. Representative Chris Deluzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy. Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
And the intelligence community.
who take risks each day to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now. Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk. This administration is pitting our uniformed military
And intelligence community professionals.
against American citizens. Like us. You all swore an oath.
To protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
In the Army or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
The American people need you. We need you to stand up for our laws.
our Constitution and who we are as Americans. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
At 9:08 a.m. today, Donald Trump wrote his first lies about what you just heard. And please remember that everything I report to you that Donald Trump said about this is a lie. He said, it's called seditious behavior at the highest level. Each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. We won't have a country anymore. 3 exclamation points. An example must be set. There is nothing seditious about it. The only logic of Donald Trump's statement is that he wants to be able to issue illegal orders, and he wants the American military to follow his illegal orders. It is impossible for anyone who understands the English language and the law to disagree with a single word that any of those members of Congress said. And everyone today who has objected to what they said has left out the fact that they are all referring only to illegal orders. 12 minutes later, Donald Trump wrote, "This is really bad and dangerous to our country. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors, lock them up, ? Now, no, they will never be locked up. They will never be charged. There is nothing to investigate. Every word they said is true and is legally correct. And then an hour later, Donald Trump said, seditious behavior, punishable by death. To which Senator Chuck Schumer said this.
Let's be crystal clear. The President of the United States is calling for the execution of elected officials.
That's right.
And what did the Republican Speaker of the House say? The man who spent the year burning up all of his political power, if he had any, while functioning as Donald Trump's servant in trying and completely failing to block the vote to release the Epstein files, the vote that knocked down the Trump wall in the House of Representatives. What did he say?
The words that the president chose are not the ones that I would use, okay? Obviously, I don't think that these are crimes punishable by death or any of that, okay?
And there you have it, refuting Donald Trump right away. That's the first thing he said. That is not a defense of Donald Trump. And that is a legal refutation of Donald Trump by a former law professor, completely refuting what Donald Trump said legally. That's the Speaker of the House saying, no, words are not punishable by death, especially legally accurate words. The Speaker, being a politician, then added, quote, sometimes he uses heated rhetoric, okay? But do any of you agree that that's appropriate, that they should be telling young members of the military to defy orders? No one told members of the military to defy orders. They told members of the military that they should not follow illegal orders. And every Republican and every Rupert Murdoch-owned propaganda outlet that tries to smear those Democrats with the accusation that they told the American military not to follow orders is lying, and they know they are lying, and they are consciously lying about what those Democrats said. And that is the only way that those liars know how to respond to a situation like this. It's why it is a complete waste of time and a violation of sanity to bring Trump defenders onto television shows on subjects like this, because they will all lie and claim that the Democrats told the military not to follow orders. They will all leave out the word illegal. They will all lie. That is how they do it. Everyone at West Point is trained not to issue and not to follow illegal orders. And tonight, some people want to pretend that there's something wrong with saying that out loud. The American military should never follow illegal orders. We should all know that, and we should all be willing to say that. And there has never been a more appropriate time to issue that reminder than during a presidency that has already issued illegal orders according to federal judges. 2 federal judges have ruled that Donald Trump's ordering of the National Guard out in California and in the District of Columbia are illegal orders. We never needed a warning like this for any other president under any other presidency. But we absolutely need it now with a convicted criminal in the presidency, a convicted felon, who doesn't know what the law is. Tomorrow, Donald Trump is going to meet with the mayor-elect of New York City in the Oval Office, Zohran Mamdani, who Donald Trump has lied about relentlessly, calling him a communist without knowing what a communist is. And Donald Trump has repeatedly accused the mayor-elect of being anti-Semitic. And tonight, Zohran Mamdani has helped set the stage for tomorrow's meeting by calling something Donald Trump has done disgusting. The mayor-elect used that one word in his retweet of a Washington Post tweet saying, U.S. Coast Guard will no longer classify swastikas, nooses, and Confederate flags as hate symbols. Thank you, Donald Trump. Donald Trump's entire assault on universities in America is based on the pretense
I'm going to stop.
that
Get
Donald
another
Trump
one.
cares
Come on.
about
It's going to be a
anti-Semitism
breaking coverage here.
in universities, and he's going to police it. There was much more anti-Semitism in American universities when Donald Trump was in college, and he never said a word about it. There was much